You're listening to Biz-Souls, the business podcast with an edge, hosted by me, Rona and Jeffrey Hansler. Tune in for perspectives and discoveries about the changing world of business. It's time to connect to the heart, soul, and humor of how business gets done. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Biz-Souls. I'm Rona Lewis.
I'm Jeffrey Hansler.
Yeah.
And we get to the heart and soul.
Yes, so?
We get to the heart and soul of business and the people that make it happen.
And it's us today.
It's only 108, what are we at? 125 episodes. They're not all published yet, and I still haven't got this down. One of these days.
I am really desperate for a partner. So if anyone out there is...
I heard that about Farrah Fawcett. She's an older time actress. They said once she had to do so many takes, the director just said, "Get it done on this one or we'll just can the movie."
There you go. So anyway, we are talking comedy today. And what aspect of comedy are we talking about, Jeffrey?
We're talking about, well, let's give it. I think the title would be Humor and Training. Get it? There's a little play on what? Humor and training.
Yeah.
So we're both in L&D. We both do
facilitation, speaking, workshops.
We do keynotes, general sessions, all kinds of stuff
we
like that.
We talk a lot.
Yeah, and we like to get paid for being talk. And one of the things is it's got to be
funny.
Yeah, or at least humorous as you do it.
And as we know, I am the funny one of the two.
Absolutely. So anyway, and humor's been getting a bad rap lately. Jerry Seinfeld just did a commencement speech.
Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. And he talked about the importance of humor, even though there's kind of a backlash against humor. So we thought we'd kind of go over some things. This isn't a expose of humor, the complete thing. It's just kind of us riffing. Yeah. This is going to be a little shorter episode. We just want to talk about a few of the things that you can do.
Right. And I want to do a shout out to Kathy Klotz's guest. She was on our podcast some months ago. So if you want to go back and listen to her, she was in tech and she was a professional comedian. She also talks about the importance of humor, and you have to know how to do it too. And because a lot of times it can fall flat. And I am of the school of improv where, it's like write stuff down. No, it just comes out. And every time I give a talk or a class or whatever, I'm always funny, and it just comes out, and I just think of things. And not everyone can do that. So we want to share some ways that you can make your presentations a little more entertaining. Yeah.
Yeah, and to that point, you were just at a conference, speaking at a conference the other day, and weren't some of your play friends there?
Yes, they all riffed.
And who were they? Give a shout out to them as well.
A shout out to Jeff Harry. He gave actually he was in one of the big rooms, and then my friend Lauren Yee and her partner Maddie were giving a talk as well. So they California HR.
Yeah, they did good work. Yeah. And then my background is I've always tried to be the funny guy in the room sometimes.
Except when I'm around.
Yeah, exactly. And I did stand up for 3 years just to practice and work on it. So I guess that's the underlying theme of what we're doing is if you work on this stuff and play with it, it does improve.
Right.
You'll lay some eggs. You'll have some bad things. You'll get some groans. I get a lot of groans.
Well, and there's a lot of psychology. It's about knowing people, and there are patterns.
Yeah, and the first thing is you have to know your subject matter and you have to know your program.
And your people.
If you don't know the program material or you've got a structure to it and you haven't practiced it or it's brand new, it's really hard to do the comedy on it. You do the comedy when you relax it and it's part of you and what goes on. Either that or do a lot of cocaine like Robin Williams did. So.
Who couldn't stand still, or if you go way back before our time, Rodney Dangerfield. He was fighting,
right.
Same thing. And there are reasons why we laugh.
Right.
Yeah, and we wrote down some notes. Surprise! If you're going to punch, you punch up, not down. Punchline.
And what does punch mean for our? Punch means make fun of or make a remark. Like you wouldn't say if you're a manager, you don't punch down to your employees. You would punch up to the executive team.
Yeah. And you have to be really careful about that too.
Because the executive team doesn't often have a sense of humor.
That's right. They're all, adult mindset and biological inclinations, which you have to really be careful with that nowadays because evidently there's a boatload of them.
Right.
So yeah, so even that, I think I was on the edge with that one. Incongruity is a huge one. It's like when a guy juggles a bowling ball, an apple, and a power mower. It's like it's that third thing that's out of nowhere.
Right.
That makes it funny.
Well, and play on words, which we do a lot with our titles. I did what was the one that came to mind? It was a bit of a play on word.
For Easter, the exceptional or the egg.
Yeah, egg not what you can do for your podcast. Although
that's like a dad joke.
It is a dad joke because you would have to know that was one of Kennedy's lines. So that was back in 1961 when he did his speech, "Ask not what you can do for your country." Yes. So, and I liked it. So I had fun.
He's the one. Okay.
By the way, in that regard too, I'm noticing most of the corporate clients I'm getting and the consulting gigs, almost all the people that I'm involved with at the leadership, they all have a great sense of humor. Yeah. It's the ones that don't have a sense of humor and can't laugh, they don't even get around to hiring me because they're like, I'm sure I leave the room and they're going like, man, we couldn't have that around. I'm sorry, that's not proper. Oh my God, that he might upset somebody.
Well, yeah, it's when I finish a sentence, Rona. Good, yeah, I'm a professional speaker,
and she's funny.
And yeah, so I was trying to figure out a way to lean in. So I'm just going to say it. Today I had 2 classes of over 100 people each, and at one of them we were just talking and riffing, and I don't even remember the line, and everybody got hysterical, and I just said, I'll be here till Thursday, try the veal. And there was an upper level person there, didn't even think about it, and we got off, and afterwards she's like, I was hysterical when you said that. And I'm like, thank God, And sometimes stuff just comes out of my mouth, and it is funny, and I don't think about some of the repercussions, and sometimes you do.
Well, and we're lucky. I mean, if you watch comedy, or if you like watching funny movies and things like that. So in the corporate world, come on, we steal their lines. We steal a lot of their lines and take them. And we take them, by taking them into the corporate world, you're taking them out of context.
Yeah.
And that is the surprise. And that is also the humor and the incongruity that adds to it. So it's great.
And we watch a lot of movies, so we quote them, and they can be very funny.
Exactly.
So let's talk about the power of 3 for this. Go into that.
Well, the power of 3 is... human beings have this attraction to trips, threes,
triples,
the Trinity, we've got 3 branches of government in the United States.
The three-toed sloth.
And
that's the incongruity right there.
Right. And we're into the patterns. Of, so you have one line that's a little funny, and then you have another line that's a little funnier, and then you hit them with the third line, and that's always good. And you have to build trips. You've got to work on them. Those are things that don't come, and those are things that you could do. Those are going to take more work, though, rather than incongruity, which can sometimes happen right away, off the cuff and things like that.
Right.
So trips are more work, which is why you don't do a lot of them.
I don't. Well, you know what? Sometimes.
Because you're improv.
Yes. And I tend to do them more when I'm writing because I have a chance to think about it.
Right.
And improv... it's off the cuff. So yes, I do them when I write, and sometimes I will write them into a speech if I know what my subject matter is. When I'm teaching a class or a seminar, no.
Right. So in comedy routines, a lot of the comedy routines are blue. They deal with what's the word? A lot of biological inclinations.
Yes.
Now those are probably not going to fly at the work. They'll probably
there has to be a level of decorum in that.
Right, exactly. So you can't be talking about somebody's sex. Can't be talking about sexuality. You can't be talking really seriously about. You got to be careful about age. You got to be careful of all these sensitive subjects at work, and you can't bring them up. Whereas sometimes they're okay with your friends or okay in a small group. When you're on stage, though, you have to take care of everybody that's on stage. And, that would be an area to avoid. You'd avoid those. The superiority ones are kind of tough. One group superior over another. We already talked about that with you punch down or punch up.
Right.
Even punching up, that superiority.
You have to be careful
You have to
with
be
that.
really careful, otherwise it can really bite you.
And, I want to talk a little bit about words. Word choice is always important. And I am, as Jeffrey knows, I am a voracious reader. Right there's a big word. Yeah.
Big word.
And it's important to have a good vocabulary because some words are funny, some words are not. And words that sound funny will work better. Like pickle is funny. Tomato, not so much.
Right. And it's the hard words, like peas are funny because of the way they roll, which is interesting because peas are also a big issue with microphones.
Right.
They because they bounce.
You don't want to pop your peas.
Right. And then K's and K sounding things, pickle, it has both. Those are also, they have a tendency. We like words like that. And I think it comes from our childhood when they'd laugh at words.
Well, yes, and long multisyllabic words, towns like Kalamazoo starts with a K, Pismo Beach.
Right.
That's like so certain, well, that was a Bugs Bunny thing.
Yeah, exactly. Pismo Beach, you're going to, Miami Beach.
No, Pismo Beach.
He also did Miami Beach.
Did he?
They did a new gag on the other side of the world.
So my point is, look for synonyms that if you're going to describe something, don't use this was great and then this was great and then this, use this was extraordinary and this was powerful. When you're making jokes, those different words make a difference, and then you want to find a funny one that says that as your punchline.
Right. Some speakers open up with a joke, or they'll open with a funny story, and then they're trying to loosen the audience up that way. And they practice it. It's the same. It's good to have something. That's where I like improv. You just come in and you try and use something from the audience or something that happens.
Yeah, and you can, if you practice being fast on your feet, it's a muscle. You will get better, and you may have heard something that morning, and then you throw it in there, or someone just said something to you, or you see someone wearing something in the audience. You can bring that in, and that's part of improv and making the audience part of it, which is super fun. They love that.
Right. Exaggeration's one. You're exaggerating stuff, and so you make it bigger. So it's
eating a 240-pound orange because you need the vitamin C because you have a cold. Yeah.
Right. And stuff comes around and goes around because different generations. So a lot of the material that you'll see that you think is brand new has not only been used once, it's probably been used, once or twice by somebody every couple of decades. Mm-hmm. Like right now, one of the things that's going on, I think today, yesterday or something, is Red Nose Day, where everybody puts on the red nose and there's a big comedy thing. It's all official, try and draw money and stuff. Mm-hmm. Red nose has been around for a while.
Right. Well, clowns. Yeah. And definitely practice. If you're putting humor into a talk or a class, practice it with somebody who will tell you the truth and will help you with your lines or delivery. Delivery is everything. If you're too stiff, it will not come off. Doesn't matter how funny it is.
Yeah, and you've got to relax. If you're stiff, there was Wright.
Stephen Wright. Well, he was deadpan.
That was deadpan. He wasn't stiff. Well, he was stiff and deadpan.
Was he?
He was.
I just thought he was, because
he was hilarious.
I used to see him in person. He used to come up to Stand Up New York on the Upper West Side on 78th Street and practice his stuff, and he was hysterical, and he just never smiled.
I cannot remember a single joke. It was always that funny, that surprise at the end.
He was very good at that.
He would lead you down one way, and then all of a sudden it would be a surprise ending or something.
And so watch comedians. Go to the Comedy Channel, watch them. Go to comedy shows just to get used to pacing.
Exactly. And,
not to steal their stuff because it won't work in a corporate setting.
No, I heard Robin Williams got beat up once for stealing some guy's routine.
Oh, yeah.
And I love Robin Williams. He was fabulous. He was phenomenal. And his improv and his riffs, they were all great stuff.
Brilliant, man.
I was going to say some Friends. people wonder why you have friends. And I think one of the most useful things for friends is to try out your material on them. As a matter of fact, that's what
Use
makes
them.
friends valuable. Yeah, it's the only reason is just to be able to try your material out.
And we actually work with each other, help me with this, help me with that. And we are brutally honest with each other. No, that sucks. Don't use that.
Yeah, exactly.
So these are, anything else you want to add, or we just want to, come on and talk about this a little bit, because we have both seen too many people who try to add humor and don't know how or don't know where to put it. And you have to know the material and you have to know your audience. It's going to be different if you're going to, a bunch of judges versus a bunch of people in marketing.
Right. And here's the thing. Here's the trend. The separation between work and personal is disappearing.
I was going to say, yeah, there is none.
Right. And because entertainment is so worldwide and you can get information anywhere, people, in terms of how are you going to make that information your own? How are you going to make it interesting for them? How are you going to change it? How are you going to help them turn information into knowledge? Mm-hmm. And humor is a enormously effective vehicle at doing that. And the more you practice, the more you play with, the better you'll get.
Well, speaking of play, that's the kind of attitude that you need in order to bring humor in. You have to be a little bit playful and loose, which is, why so many of my play peeps do humor and a couple are comedians. They really go hand in hand. People learn better when they are happy, when they are upbeat, and when they're more playful. And when you add that humor, it gives them permission to relax.
Right. And the science does show. And so there's a lot of tension. There's tension at work. People are there's some
There's
hostility
tension and stress
going
everywhere,
on.
Let's face
There's
it.
a lot of polarization going on. And what they've known for years outside of work is that, if somebody's sad, if they're depressed, if you can A, get them moving, and B, start to see a broader scope of that situation, and eventually it becomes humorous. So, when somebody dies, it's close to you, it's very, very painful. A couple years later, you start joking about the funny things they did, or, maybe how they farted or something, and then you
funny?
can laugh about it. No, it wasn't intended to be funny. I was just saying that fart jokes are pretty,
always funny.
Yeah, they're pretty low bar
on the totem pole.
Yeah, low hanging fruit.
Do not do that in an L&D session.
No. But what if you did fart and you were doing an L&D session?
Then you
have to have a line.
Is there a duck in here? What was that?
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, and that's where play is, and that's why the play is creeping, crawling, going, developing into corporate America, because it really does help people heal. It helps people transition. It helps them get healthier mentally.
Well, yeah, and you get the dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. Those are the feel-good hormones. And you watch a movie and you laugh. You watch a comedian, and that's what happens. You get those feel-good hormones in there. So.
All right, so we're gonna put a pin in this one. Before that, though, So you think if you've got one of your funniest story, because when you add humor in,
I don't know if I have any funny stories.
Oh well, or a funny incident. Well, I'll tell mine first. See because we hadn't talked about this. And the point I want to make with this is not this particular story. The point is it's one of my happiest memories, because when you can make people laugh, when you can have them do something really funny, when they enjoy something, they remember that, and these people were talking about this the rest of the night. So it was a sales meeting. We were there. They'd had a huge party the night before. One of the guys had gotten totally drunk, and he missed the sales meeting. So he was in hot water. He was a good salesperson. He was going to be in hot water. He was definitely going to get ribbed on this. So we're still in the morning session. It's an all-day training on sales. And at 10 o'clock, I was asking them some questions and stuff, and we were having a little dialogue. And all of a sudden, I guess somebody outside drops something against the wooden doors, and you just hear this big. And I said, well, sounds like John's trying to enter the room. And first there's this quiet, and then all of a sudden they're all cracking up. And they're turning around like, is that John? Did John get up and is he still drunk and falling down? And it was a little bit of surprise and stuff. And Rona's not cracking up because it's one of the moments you had to be there because that's what improv is, where you're in the moment and it comes out.
Right.
So, and that story, I cannot think of Lake Lanier in Georgia. Every time I think of that, I think of that scenario.
I bet, and that happens a lot. When you're in the moment, it's absolutely hysterical, and it's hard to describe because you don't have that element. At this, I just spoke at the California HR convention 2 days ago, and nobody schmoozes like me. I'm a very good schmoozer. And I went up to, I know how surprising, a table of guys that were just talking. I think there were 2 other women there. And I was like, hey, what are you guys talking about? And a couple of them were from the same company. And so they were sharing. They're like, hey, so what do you do? And I said, well, I have a company called Playful Mind Project. And this is what I'm talking about. So I said, they're like, so you teach play? I was like, yep. So play with us. Okay. So I got them to do some play games and activities, and they were good. Ow! And all of a sudden, people were looking at this. We were all outside. There's like 600 people there, and there's this one table of like 8 people, and we were standing because it was cocktails, and people were like, what the heck? And all of a sudden, we started gathering people, and they didn't know what the heck they were laughing at. They were just seeing us going and making all kinds of weird noises, and it was funny. We had fun, and by the end of that evening, everyone knew who I was.
Yeah, well, that's very, very good. Yeah. So cha-ching.
Yeah. So when it's okay to be silly. People are afraid to be silly. You can take your job seriously. Don't take yourself too seriously.
That's a good line to end. That's an excellent
On that
line.
note, there we go. We are available for weddings and bar mitzvahs. I'm Rona Lewis.
I'm Jeffrey Hansler.
And this has been Biz-Souls. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Biz-Souls podcast with your hosts, Rona Lewis and Jeffrey Hansler. Did you have fun? Subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. Talk to you next week.